Hi, guys. Welcome to the FSF podcast. I am Tim. I'm your host, and just reminding you that this is a show made by nerds for nerds. So, welcome to the Nerdery Kids. Our guest today is an actress who's been in many movies and shows, along with some voice work in some video games as well. Most notably, you'll recognize her from her work in Call of Duty, Infinite Warfare, Once Upon a Time, SWAT, and Resident Alien, the ever popular show on the Sci-Fi Network. I am very proud and pleased to welcome Sara Tomko to the FSF podcast. Welcome to the show, Sara.
Hi, Tim. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here.
Yeah. So, Sara, first things first, we like to start off our interviews by asking our guests about how they began in the entertainment industry, an origin story, if you will, because as I said, we're nerds and nerds love origin stories.
Oh, yeah.
It explains a lot of these Marvel movies.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. The origin story. Well, I was born on, no, I'm just kidding. I won't go that far back, but I do think that if I really think back, I've always had a very imaginative, impulsive, creative knack for playfulness and for character building and role playing. And I remember in middle school trying out for the softball team, the basketball team, and I did those sports growing up, but I wasn't a sports person. Like, it just didn't come naturally to me. There were some things I was really good at, like defense. I love defense. And maybe if I had gotten into something like soccer, I feel like I've got strong legs. Maybe that would have been my thing. But what ended up happening was jazz hands, Tim. It turned into some, show choir, which led to musicals, which led to plays, which led to me actually exploring the idea of majoring in it, which I didn't know was a possibility. I kind of remember having a distinct thought of, well, actors just act. They audition. They're in Hollywood. I don't know how they do it, but it certainly isn't a major you can choose in college. Mm-hmm. I don't know. In my mind, it wasn't because it wasn't a practical job as what you're told when you're younger. Oh, sure. That's an extracurricular activity, but it's not, something you can rely on, because as we know, as artists, our parents are terrified when we tell them the truth that we are artists because it's not a moneymaker, and it certainly isn't something you can rely on consistently. Right. So when I realized you could major in it, I remember thinking, Tim, okay, I'll major in theater until I figure out what I'm going to actually do as my job. Like, I'm right. Good at this. I can do this. Cause I realized I was good at singing. I was good at dancing. I was good at acting. It was something that came naturally to me. Like, I imagine, someone who does play sports who actually has just a natural talent. It comes naturally to them. So, I really kind of wiggled into becoming like a professional actor by going to college, then really falling into like black box experimental physical body movement that got me so interested in character work that I could never really look back. And after that, I was in love, and I just said, all right, I guess I'm going to go to New York. And then that became a reality that was terrifying to me because I love New York so much. I love singing. I love musical theater. I wanted to be on Broadway, and I just didn't want to mess it up. And something at the end of my college career told me, hey, why don't you go try and get a gig elsewhere, get some money, get your bearings, and then go to New York. And to my surprise, I studied for 2 years at a place called Shadowbox in Ohio that was sort of like a sketch comedy rock band type of vibe. Mm-hmm. So I was singing and dancing and doing sketch. But while I was there, I went and visited a friend in LA. LA was never on my radar. What I learned about LA growing up in magazine articles was it's either Rodeo Drive or Hollywood Boulevard. It's a whole world you cannot touch. It's like, it's not possible. It's like a whole other existence. And I was not there. I mean, I loved movies growing up, but it wasn't like oh, movies is the thing, to me, it was Broadway. And then I visited a friend, my best friend, Ellen, and she lived in West Hollywood. And the first day I was there, I got a coffee and it was the Pride Parade, and everyone was telling me how beautiful I was, and I was telling them they were beautiful. And I was just like, wow, this is so colorful and amazing. And then I like went with my friend to Home Depot, and I had to go to the bathroom, and in the bathroom was a framed picture of Audrey Hepburn. And I was like, what kind of place are we in where you can go to a Home Depot? Even they are celebrating beautiful film, like
Right,
beautiful
right, yeah.
actors. And all of a sudden I started looking at LA differently. And I thought, you know what? LA gets a bad rap. People are always talking about all the money and all the pomp and
Mhm.
circumstance, but it is really quite extraordinary, and it's quite normal. No one talks about how normal of like a suburb it really is, even though it doesn't feel like, suburbs.
Right.
So anyway, that led me down this path of, I think that's the next step. And that led to me moving across the country. I didn't know anyone but my friend Ellen and a friend from high school named Becca. I went with my boyfriend at the time. Like, we just were kind of like, let's just see. And I started with no job. I got a waitressing gig pretty, quick. And that led
Mhm.
to central casting, which is background work, which led to me just wanting to be on set and doing anything I could to get there, which led to kind of independent films, which was sort of the start of my career. Actually, I started early days. I was making like $25 a day. This kid, just like, I'll do anything, within reason, moral
Well,
compass,
yeah,
like,
well,
I'll do anything, just I want to be on set. And I was getting paid $25 a day to be in these movies that ended up being on Sci-Fi Channel, which is so funny because I feel like now I've full circle, you know,
sure.
getting cast on Sci-Fi was just a real sort of dream moment. But it really was a process. I got there when I was 23, and I didn't land my first big gig till The Leftovers, when I played the cave woman, and
Mhm.
that was like, I think that was 2015. So that's about 8 or 9 years it took, like, building up to get,
Sure, sure.
to get that momentum. And that sort of became, there's always a domino that starts the domino effect. I thought it would be a quicker domino effect. I thought after I get one big booking, I'm going to just, here I go. And
Right.
it doesn't work like that. Like, it does eventually, but eventually the domino finally like landed on something else, which finally landed. And then it started picking up steam once I got Once Upon a Time, Sneaky Pete, some really
Mhm.
good guest star recurring roles. And then that led to Resident Alien. And it just happened to come into my life at a time that was really timely. And they sent me the comic book cover with Asta and Harry. And I remember like, my breath was taken away when I saw that cover, and I thought, "Oh, that's me." And I just went in going, wow, I've never seen a comic book version of myself. And then I went into the audition, um, just sort of, I don't know. Sometimes when you audition, you just know when it's right for you. And I definitely went into this one kind of feeling so relaxed, which is not normal. Not normally, you're so full of butterflies, but I was so relaxed because I just felt like I really understood her. That's what
Right.
happened with The Leftovers and The Cave Woman too. I remember walking out of that audition feeling like, yes, that is it, Same thing
Nailed
with
it.
Sneaky Pete, like, there's just, when you land them, you land them. I would imagine it's kind of like, I don't know, a gymnast. Obviously, Olympics is on the brain for me. I'm so excited. It starts tonight. I'm so
Yes.
excited. But I imagine that's what it's like when you stick the landing, and that's what happens in auditions too. So that's my origin story.
I love
The
it.
long and short of it.
I love it. Long answers are good answers, so that's okay. I was gonna ask you this question later on in the interview, but I think we're gonna bump it up a little bit because I think you kind of segued nicely into it.
Okay.
Um, You didn't even know it. Look at you. You're doing a great job setting me up.
Thank you.
So, because we've had a various number of both actors and voice actors on the show who, and I'm always intrigued by the number of you guys who have a musical background in one way or another.
Hmm.
Whether they played in bands, or they were just really good at singing in the shower, or they were, they spent time in musical theater, whatever it is. Um, they all have, many of you guys have musical backgrounds. And then I read that you love to sing. And then I went and did some light digital stalking. In other words, I followed you on on Instagram, and then started going through some of your reels.
Nice.
And but I found reels on Instagram of you singing and playing guitar. And by the way, nice voice.
Thank
Honestly,
you.
you have a very nice singing voice. Very easy to listen to. Very, very just relaxed and very controlled. Um,
Tim.
so the question I wanted to ask you is a question I've asked others about their musical backgrounds. How does music factor into either your preparation or your execution of your acting roles?
Music is a muscle. When you use that muscle to sing, I mean, it is a real workout. And for that, I'd say learning how to read music, learning how to listen and to be present is something that is very real when you're singing. You have to really be in the moment, be calm when your body is doing something that's that much of a workout. And I think music certainly helps me in my preparation. I have playlists for sure that Asta listens to depending on the day and the scene that I'm working on. I have moments in my trailer where if I feel lost, if I feel confused, if I feel like I don't know where I am or how I'm feeling that day, I can just sing a song and come right back to myself. And that will really center me and ground me. I've actually used singing quietly, but like in a corner on set to prepare for going into an emotional scene, because it's so vulnerable. Singing is such a vulnerable, beautiful
Mm-hmm.
skill. And it does take practice, and it does take care. And I think our character work takes care as well, especially dramatic character work. And as you know, on the show, I play the straight man. I got all these comedians all around me, but Asta goes through a lot of turmoil, especially in season one.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to bring some of that to the table myself, which was, I think my musical background certainly helps with that. Also, memorization. I think I have a really strong brain for memorizing, because of the things I learned about reading music growing up, and also waitressing. To be honest, I've really really practiced the memorization muscle over time. And also when you have to prepare a song for a show, you have to memorize how you're singing it and memorize the lyrics. And sometimes songs can be tricky because verses sound exactly the same, and you kind of forget which verse where. So you have to, like, I remember doing that kind of intentional character work even when I was singing when I was younger, thinking about, well, what's the story? How do I remember to connect back to the story so that I know what verse I'm on, so that I don't forget which verse this is? And there's always a story in music, and as there is in storytelling, in TV and in film.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great question. I've never really thought about it, but I do think my musical background has helped me tremendously.
I think so. I because everyone that we've talked to, you know, when they give the answer, whether it's, you know, especially if for voice actors, they talk about how it helps them keep their lines in time,
Hmm.
and then for actors who are on screen, now this you're the first one that I've talked to that talks about having, singing right before going on to an emotional screen, shot rather, and all of that. But others have talked about how the listening to music before going on in their trailer. You talked about having playlists and things like that. About how that's a pretty common one, and how music will help them get their mind in a certain area, especially if they're playing a happy scene or a sad scene, something that requires a little bit more energy in one way or another. How they'll listen to some particular music, particular artists or songs that help them kind of direct themselves in that vein. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really interesting aspect of how the two correlate with one another.
Yeah, I think the vulnerability is probably the biggest connect for me. Singing is very vulnerable to me, and it's also a core memory, core center for me. So it's something that really I can bring myself. If there's a zero or a neutral, like a place you can come back to, it's that. So the minute I start singing, I can remember who I am and I can remember what I'm doing. But that's just because I think that's just been ingrained in me since I was really young.
Nice. All right. So talking about Resident Alien, you mentioned that about how your portrayal of Asta has affected you and things along those lines. Now, this has been Resident Alien has been your longest tenure project that you've worked on.
Mhm.
Uh, so there's been 3 seasons aired so far. But what has been the thing that you've enjoyed the most about portraying Asta over these first 3 seasons?
Um, wow. Gosh, I think her personal journey has gone from grief and shame and devastation to season 3. She's finally healing and lightened up, and she goes from desperately wanting to be a mom to finally getting to be a mom to finally like asking herself who she is when she's not taking care of people. It's a lovely arc that we've experienced with her so far, and I'm really looking forward to yay going back for a 4th season to now discover what does Asta do outside of I don't know, caring for other people. What's next for her? Because now she's reunited with her daughter. She's obviously reunited with her best friend. Harry's got people on the team now, so she's not alone in taking care of him. And so I'm really looking forward to talking with the writers about um, exploring what it is to gain your power back. I think
Hmm.
when we are in pain, it's easy to stay in pain
For sure.
because it's familiar and it's really hard to climb out of the well of darkness. But
Agreed.
once you can climb out, whether you have a hand helping you or multiple hands, I'm reminded of Sarah from Labyrinth. I don't know if you've ever seen Labyrinth, but we are helping. We are helping hands. You're like, which way do you want to go, up or down? And I'm always screaming at the screen, like, go up, go up. Why would you go down? Isn't that funny how we watch things and just expect them to? That must be some form of, of anxiety. You watch things over and over expecting it to change and it won't. That is
It
probably
doesn't. Yeah. No matter how.
right.
Yeah. No matter how loudly I yell at my television, the scenes
It's
don't
not gonna.
change.
It's Romeo and Juliet are still going to die. There's nothing we can do
Right.
about it, everyone. But I think my favorite thing about playing Asta is watching her grow. In fact, I called my showrunner Chris after the finale of season 3. She has this very simple moment with her daughter in the car where she looks back and says retainer, like, and it's, I don't know how to describe it other than it's like mom achieved. It's like in that moment in a video game where it's like trophy achieved. Like she did it, like she
Right.
really figured out how to really be a mom to her daughter. And it felt, I cried when I saw that moment. It's such a small, simple thing, but after being on this journey with her, which is 3 seasons, but really 6 years of my life, it has
Sure.
been so amazing to watch myself grow and to watch her grow in the process. So I'm excited to hopefully like really get my power back. Cause like I said, when you're in pain, it's easy to stay in pain. But what's it like to be healthy and strong, you know? What does that look like for Asta? I'm looking forward to exploring that.
Well, let me ask you this, because this just popped into my head, because this wasn't even in my notes of questions that I wanted to ask you tonight. But one of the things I read about you is that you're a very strong mental health advocate,
Mm-hmm.
and which caught my attention because I've had my own struggles with mental health over the years, and learning as a man in this culture to deal with your own masculinity, and what's acceptable masculinity, and compared to societal standards, and
Oh yeah.
all these different things. It can be very, very trying at times. But you mentioned about, when you're in pain, staying in pain, it's easier just to stay down, and that's something else I had to learn to uh, come to recognition of and deal with, and all those things. Why is mental health such an important aspect for you? And especially when you look at the mental health journey of your own character and her mental health journey, why is the portrayal of that so important to you?
I think something our show does beautifully is talk about otherness and how we feel othered. And that's something Asta and Harry really bond over from the start. And I've heard so many people respond to that in kind and in gratitude because they feel so similarly. And I think it's very common, more often than not, to experience anxiety or depression, but not necessarily to know how to talk about it, especially as a man. I think it's really hard for men to express themselves when they've been taught not to, when they've been taught actually not even not to, but that it's shameful if you would, and that how dare you show vulnerability. And
Right.
it's like it's okay for women to cry, but not for men. Like it's bizarre. It's sad. It's because there are so many. We are all so connected as human species because
Mhm.
we are these vulnerable creatures walking around. And you look at a duck, for instance, on a pond, they're not thinking about being a duck, I assume, right? They just are. They're just existing. We, however, are like thinking about what it is to be human. And it is like this daunting, haunting, like daily task that we have to go through. And I think for me, mental health is such an important, powerful topic of conversation because we don't talk about it enough. And I have made it a personal commitment to talk about it as often as possible and to make people feel comfortable talking about it, no matter what sex or gender or, race or anything. That,
Mhm.
that we all bleed the same color and we all experience anxiety. Those are two human truths, because that is just part of our species experience that we can say, hey, oh yeah, that's why we can relate to characters on TV, because when they go through things like that, you see yourself in them. And that's
Absolutely.
happened to me. I've watched TV and I've seen someone go through some heartbreaking moment, or even some grand fun moment. And I've been like, yeah, that's it. Or, oh God, yeah, that's it. And you feel like it's relatable. And I think one of my lots in life is to relate and to be related to, because I think connecting is the best, most beautiful thing we can do as humans. Because who knows how long we're going to be here? Who knows what our purpose is? Nobody
Right.
knows what we're doing here. We're all floating around on a rock in the sky, like, and we're not talking about how bizarre that is, like. So I think the more
Right.
important to me, because the more we talk about it, the more we can normalize it, the more we can take away this idea that it's shameful. And somehow we have connected shame to emotion, emotional outburst, or even anger. People have a hard
Mhm.
time dealing with anger. I went to anger management because I had a hard time dealing with feelings that came up after my divorce, and I didn't understand what was happening to me. And that was something I could relate back to Asta, because she has this abusive husband, and while mine wasn't physically abusive, I definitely didn't feel seen or held by him the way I wanted to in the end. And
Right.
that was something that really, when I got that script, I remember feeling like I could relate immediately to what she was feeling. Because whether it's physical or mental, or emotional, abuse is abuse, and anxiety is anxiety, and we can
Yes.
all relate.
No, I think that's a great answer. I think that one of the things that we as on the viewer side of things, it, it's hard for us as individuals to relate to one another when it comes to, because nobody wants to admit that they're dealing with some crap. Nobody
Right.
wants to admit that they've got some stuff in their back pocket that they don't want to show anybody, that they want to hide it, and that everything's fine, I'm okay.
Absolutely.
Matter of fact, in our house, if somebody asks you how you're doing, you're not allowed to say fine. My wife doesn't like that. Uh,
I love that. What's your wife's name?
my wife's name is Shayna.
Sheena, girl, I love that.
Yeah, because
Normalize
fine,
that. We don't say fine anymore.
right?
Yes.
Because fine means feelings inside not expressed.
Ooh,
That's
I've
and
never
so
heard that. I like that.
yeah, and so that she runs with that. So she'll ask me, "How's your day?" Fine. No. How was your day? So she'll circle back on it. But
Shayna, I love that.
yeah. Um, but I think that it's great for us as viewers to be able to have characters like Asta to be able to look at and go, "Wow, they're dealing with that." And even though we know that it's in the framework of a show, and it's a television show, and it's all these different things, but having that relatability makes them a more believable character,
Sure.
makes them someone that you can tie into. And I think that one of the things that I like about the show, and one of the things that I like about where Hollywood in general is going overall, is that I think that we're seeing a much healthier portrayal of mental health over especially the last 5 to 10 years, of characters not only recognizing that there's some issues, but and subsequently dealing with those issues in a healthier way.
Yeah,
Whereas before it was just, oh, look at them, they're crazy, they're dealing with this, ha ha ha, and then it was kind of a point of conjecture, and then they would move on.
absolutely.
Whereas,
I mean, if you could track it back to the history of filmmaking, imagine why a witch is such a villain, because she has been wronged and is having an emotional outburst and I'm gonna get ya. And yet, does anyone want to talk about who harmed her and hurt her? Does anyone want to sit the witch down and be like, hey, girl, I feel you. You don't need to like take it out on everybody. Like, there's an origin
right,
story, like you said, for everyone, including villains, and especially villains. Villains, you do not come into this world with hate in your heart. I don't believe that. There's no way. So it's born. Villains are made. I mean, you're
right,
born, villains are made, and that kind of shame, self shame is also
hmm
created based on what we're taught. So I just feel like it's definitely something that it is I am with you. I feel so connected to characters on television and in film and in theater, any sort of performance, music too, where you really see them expressing themselves in a
hmm
truthful, honest way that isn't just pretty for pretty's sake. I mean, I think we struggle in our social media world with putting on a show for
oh
people
yeah,
and not actually talking about what's going on. So I have made an effort to post some days about what I'm really feeling.
yes,
And I'm always really surprised how many people are like, I needed to read that today. Thank you.
hmm
And I think the more we can all just be honest, the more we can just be like, man, it's weird being human, right? Like, what the beep? You know what I mean? Like, really, it is weird being human.
right,
Like, let's
right.
just give each other a break. Like, everyone walking around is in pain. Literally, anyone you run into today is in some sort of pain
Dealing with something,
because it's so
yeah,
hard to be human. Even on their best days, they're carrying some scar or heartache because we're so tender and we evolve and we grow. ideally. Some of us don't. And, if you don't evolve, you die. And that is true. But like, I think those of us who really want to see change are having the conversations and are willing to have the conversations,
Absolutely.
and I think that's important.
Absolutely. 1,000%. Yeah. One of my friends likes to say that we need to give each other a break because we're all just cucumbers with anxiety, because cucumbers and humans have the same something in common. We're all both 80% water. So
Oh my God, I'm never going to look at a cucumber the same. That's amazing. Now, when I cut into a cucumber, I'm going to be so gentle. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
but they're delicious. So
they're delicious. Yes. That's so, and good for you too.
exactly. All right, so a change of topic. Something else I in doing research about you that I wanted to just kind of dig into for a little bit, because I think this is really cool. Now, you are also the CEO of In the Pocket Productions. It's a film company that won the Best Cinematography Award in the 2024 Paris International Short Film Festival. So, first off, congrats.
Thank
Kudos.
you.
But tell us, if you would, about the film that won the award and why being a filmmaker is such an important part of your artistic expression.
Oh man. Well, In the Pocket Productions is myself, my husband, TJ Pedersen, who is director, editor, filmmaker extraordinaire, and our best friend and cinematographer, John Lyle. We met on a project in 2014, and we all just had this incredible chemistry together. TJ was my director. But he also is an incredible actor, and we ended up doing a husband and wife scene in this project. And John was the cinematographer. And so while TJ was directing him, they found a bond. And while he and I were working together as husband and wife, we found a bond. And maybe there was some foreshadowing there. I don't know, because he is now my husband. But that doesn't obviously happen very often. But we definitely had a connection and chemistry, the three of us. And we continued to talk after that about making art together. And we realized we had a lot of the same goals and the same, dreams, which was we really wanted to make art house films that had meaning. Even if they were art house horror, they had meaning behind them, because more often than not, we see a lot of films made quickly, cheaply, and with not that much feeling or deep sentiment. And because it's ticket sales, or it's sometimes obviously nice to just watch a blockbuster that you're going to, eat popcorn and enjoy. Like, it doesn't, not every movie has to make you feel something, but John and I and TJ really believe that the work we do and the work we want to do within the pocket, we want it to matter and mean something. And we want people, no matter what genre we're telling, we want people to be able to enjoy them and relate and feel something and walk away having conversations. And so we are a trio dedicated to that kind of art house filmmaking. So our first short film is really a feature length short. We learned a lot about the festival world at the time. We realized after the fact, when we were submitting to festivals, that we really should have made like a 10-minute film. Our film was like 38 minutes and it could have been 45. And really at that point, you should just go ahead and make it an hour and 15,
Right.
But what was great about it was we collectively combined our own money. I think we made it for, I don't know, $25,000. We had like two friends who were executive producers that helped us as well. But for the most part, it was just us putting our hearts and souls and money into this thing. And what we really wanted was to make a calling card, mostly for TJ and John, because it's hard as directors and cinematographers to be seen when you're not known. As actors, I can book a role and at least I can go, well, hey, look at this scene I did, but and sure, directors and cinematographers can make a reel, and that's and to say, hey, look at what I shot or look at what I directed. But up until that point, TJ he had directed a few projects, but none of them were at the quality of the caliber that he wanted. So we all agreed, let's do this together. And we went in
Nice.
to making this story that he as he describes, came falling out of him. It was one of those moments that once we were talking about what we wanted to do, it just kind of came to him, and he wrote it pretty quickly. And yet there was so much heart and soul in it. And we saw this potential to really do something we love, which is art house horror, but bring it to life in a colorful way. And John's cinematography, which is definitely what helped win us this award that we got recently, is all about his vision too. Him and TJ combined their vision when they're telling the story, and how colorful. I mean, John is an amazing like gaffer. That's like what he does. He's always doing the lights for some show or some independent project. And so he really knows light. He really knows energy and atmosphere. And TJ is atmosphere is like all that he is about. So visually, they're a great pair. And I am just really good at multitasking and keeping them on task. So I became the producer. I was just, somebody's got to, call SAG,
Yeah.
and somebody's got to wrangle the actors. And it became just like a really wonderful trio for us that really works. And that film is something that, we have a website called inthepocketfilms.com where you can see my reel and John's reel and TJ's reel, and there's access to that film if you want to see it. And it's definitely a calling card for what we are capable of. And we sort of look at it as, this is what we did with $25,000 of our own money and our own time and our own locations. Imagine what we could do with more. And that's kind of our pitch to people now, which is we're actually in the process of making our first feature film. And that is we're planning hopefully to shoot next summer. And we're just now in talks with people here's what we did before. Look at this. Like, oh, we just won this award. And also take a chance on us. Like, you can trust us with your money. Like there's a whole other business side to making a film, but independent film is on the rise after the strike. And I feel like our production company is at the baby steps in the beginning phases, but at the same time is just one good film away from all of a sudden, our name, who we are. And that's what it takes for directors and cinematographers, I think, to just get on the map. For actors, sure, it's the same. You could just book one gig, but I think it's a lot of gigs that lead to the one big one. And for directors and cinematographers, it's a lot more in the shadows on the sidelines until they make the big one. And that's what we're gearing up to do. So I'm excited. And I think it's time. I think there's some divine timing at hand because things are lining up.
Nice. Well, that's very cool. Yeah, so we'll make sure that down in the show notes below that we'll get some information in there about In the Pocket Film so people can check you guys out.
Cool. Yeah, thanks.
You guys got going on there. All right, so one more resident alien question before we start wrapping this up here, okay?
Okay.
Here we go.
So
it was just announced that season 4 is a thing. It's a go. It's happening.
It's happening.
But also, you're moving from the Sci-Fi Network to the USA Network. So
Yes.
it's kind of this is a big deal. The show's moving to a much larger stage, a much larger audience. So what are your hopes for the show moving forward now that many more people have an opportunity to watch it versus being on the Sci-Fi Network?
Yeah. We're really grateful to Sci-Fi for giving us a chance in the first place because this was a really great script and Chris worked so many hours on getting it just right. And we found a home in Sci-Fi and we'll be forever grateful for that. But, we're under the NBC Universal umbrella. So it's not like we're moving networks. We're still in the arena, which is why you can still find us on Peacock. But Sci-Fi just doesn't get as much of a respectful rap as other networks, and they know it. They know their market. They know their niche. They know their fans, and so do we. And we're so grateful for the fans who've been with us since season one
Mhm.
when it was
Mhm.
on Sci-Fi. Really watching. But I will say, it dropped on Netflix at the top of this year, and I don't know.
Blew up.
I gained about 40,000 followers after that. Like
Yeah.
it obviously Netflix is a huge power machine in the industry that it holds its weight in reaching people, and we are grateful that our network decided to give it to Netflix to put on there, or that Netflix asked to buy it. I'm not really sure how it works, but
But either way, yeah.
we're grateful either way. And now that people really are finding it, it feels like it's just getting its momentum. And I mean, we started in 2018, and we're like, we've been around for so many years, but we're just glad it's finally gaining momentum. It feels a little bit like, I've heard stories about like Schitt's Creek didn't get discovered till almost season 6 when it was finally, winning its awards. And I
Mhm.
remember like so many people talking about it when they weren't talking about it before. And I feel like we're kind of gaining that same momentum. The only problem, not that there's a problem, but the, possible problem is we are off contract come next year. So as series regulars, when you sign up for a show, you sign a contract that says you have me for this long. And, our contract got extended because of COVID and quarantine and the strike.
Oh, well, sure, yeah.
We could have a whole other podcast just about that journey, Tim. But
I'm down.
let's do it, because it's a whole story. But now we're at the end of that contract, and we're finishing up with season 4, and so we're all sort of, I think, not hoping at all, but like I think we're expecting that this will be our last. That is sort of we're going into it going, I don't know if they're going to want to start new contracts with us. I don't know if they're going to want to continue the story. We would love to continue. We're just now gaining momentum, but we're going into season 4 with our heads held high, grateful that we get a chance to go back,
Nice.
because not a
Nice.
lot of shows get past season 3. So the fact that we even made it to season 4 is huge. And not
Agreed.
a lot of shows these days get to finish on their terms. So we're also going into season 4. Let's finish strong. And maybe we'll leave a little opening just in case they want to pick us up again. But if not, we're going in heads held high, so proud of the work we've done, and like so excited to finish this story arc that we've been telling since season 1 strong. And I'm so grateful in the grand scheme of how things can work in this industry. We are very fortunate that we get to, you know, tell it on our terms.
I think that's a fantastic outlook, honestly. Um, yeah, fantastic. I think that I think that with the amount of fans that you've been gaining, because I looked at the season 3 numbers on Netflix, and how that, with the viewership, especially of season 3 on Netflix, after that dropped, like the numbers were holding pretty good with seasons 1 and 2, and then when they dropped season 3 on Netflix, it took off.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so I'm hoping that will continue for you guys in season 4 on USA,
I
and
am
that
too. I
someday,
mean, I love this show. I would love to do more seasons. I hope that it gets such a following by the time season 4 airs that there will be other networks that, or even our own network, that can't deny wanting to continue the story.
right,
Because of COVID and the strike, there aren't that many shows that have survived. And we have lived to tell the
agreed,
tale,
yeah,
and we are a strong force, and we have great chemistry. And I just kind of am like, don't fix it if it ain't broke. Like
right.
like we're doing good. Let us continue on this journey. Let's pump that muscle and get excited for more. But at the very least, we are doing that very thing for season 4. So
I think that's fantastic, and looking forward to that. I know you guys will start filming probably early next year, so looking forward to seeing how that all comes around. So,
me too. Thanks.
all right, one final question for you, and we like to call this our silly question.
Okay.
So, because we try to ask some serious questions so we look like reputable podcasters. But then at
And
the
you
end,
are.
we like to throw a silly one at you just to make sure that we're still keeping up with our nerd game. All right, so we asked this question because so Kathleen, who's my co-host, who wasn't able to be here tonight, her daughter is 5, and her daughter was asked this question. Kathleen was a little bit unhappy that she was not asked this question, so we decided we're going to ask everybody because there shouldn't be an age where this question doesn't get asked.
Hey, okay.
All right, so that's a lot of build up for me to say, Sara Tomko, what's your favorite dinosaur?
I know right away. And this is from Land Before Time, man. Sara Triceratops. Let's go all day long. She's got an attitude problem, but she's got a big, lovable, gushy heart. And if you've
Heart
never
of gold.
seen the movie, you got to go watch it. I love a Triceratops.
Love it.
They're a little spiky, but they really just need a big hug.
Or as I used to call them when I was a kid, triple rhino. So,
Triple rhino. There you go. I love
yeah.
that. And great question. Thank you.
Oh, very much. Thank you. And you know what? You'd be surprised how many people, I don't know. I think you're the proper age where you shouldn't be surprised how many people reference Land Before Time when answering that question.
Yeah, I bet. Well,
Yeah.
that probably puts us in an age bracket, right? But it was so influential at the time. And other than Jurassic
Absolutely.
Park, which is, which also
Mhm.
influenced us as a generation, like Land Before Time. I mean, it's so heartbreaking that film, and also so
Right.
like that's probably where I got anxiety in the first place, was just watching
Right.
them go on this journey because I was terrified they wouldn't make it home,
Where'd you get emotional trauma from? This movie about
And
dinosaurs?
then I just pull up. I actually have in like a box at home somewhere my Triceratops toy from
Love it.
yeah, it's like a little
That's
toy that I
fantastic.
carry around.
That's great. All right, Sara, thank you so much for being on the show today. Can you tell our audience, our listeners, where they can go to find out more about you and the work you have coming up?
Yes, as I said before, you can go to inthepocketfilms.com and you can see our sweet little website and our reels and kind of keep tabs on what we're working on. And then you can always find me on Instagram. I'm at Sara Tomko 19, not because there's 19 of me, because that's my favorite number. I was born on the 19th. It's just a good, solid number. So Sara Tomko 19. And yeah, I think those are the general places I'm at. I still have a profile up on X. I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm still there, and I appreciate the fans that are still with me there. And I have
Understood.
a Facebook fan page, but I don't really. I kind of get on there every once in a while to post things about the show, but I don't really use Facebook a lot. So Instagram's where it's at, and I'd love to. I'd love to see you there.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll make sure to put your Instagram information and of course, the film production information in there as well, so everybody can get a chance to follow you, check you out, and know what announcements and things you guys got coming on.
And we also have, actually, before I forget, we have an
Yeah.
Instagram for In the Pocket as well. It's In the
Yes,
Pocket
you do.
Productions. So that is also just all right. I mean, I'll have to make sure it's not In the Pocket Films. It could have been a handle that got taken, but I will. I'm looking at it right now. Hold any minute now. Yeah, it's just In the Pocket Productions. So you can
There you
find
go.
us on Instagram as well.
All right. Well, we'll add that as well. Make sure that's down in there in the
Okay.
show notes for people to be able to follow. And speaking of following, guys, seems like a prime time to remind you that if you haven't already, please click the subscribe and like button down below. It helps our show continue to grow. Get amazing guests like Sara Tomko here to be able to come in, have these conversations with us, and give you guys some cool things to listen to. So please subscribe. It helps out more than we can ever really begin to tell you. And if you have already clicked that subscribe button, well, thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, go check out Sara's work as well. You're going to want to follow along. She's got some cool things coming up, not just with In the Pocket Productions, but also with season 4 upcoming of Resident Alien. You guys are going to be sure to check that out as well. And you're going to miss out on cool announcements if you don't follow her. So follow her.
Yeah.
But
Thanks.
again, Sara, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
It was
And
so awesome talking with you. I would definitely do it again.
oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, guys, that's going to wrap us up today for the FSF Popcast. Goodbye.
Bye.
Copyright 2024 FSF Podcast. Reference any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.